We're going to work on Federalist number 12, part 8. Every once in a while, it's good to remind ourselves of how big the 13 colonies were compared to the United States, the contiguous part of the United States. Remember, we don't have Alaska and we don't have Hawaii in this map. So when you say contiguous, means the part of the United States that's attached, the states that are attached together as one piece. So this is the 48 states and the 13 states just form this yellow strip right there. And this is, of course, the Mississippi River. And we've seen the rest of the map before. So I'm going to continue reading it. If, on the contrary, there be but one government pervading all the states, there will be, as to the principal part of our commerce, but one side to guard, the Atlantic coast. So we've been talking about this quite a bit. He says if there's only one government, one union, the only side we have to guard would be on this side, the Atlantic Ocean. We won't have to worry about war breaking out between these states. All we have to worry about is if, let's say, enemy ships approach our coasts. So Union has this great advantage that you won't have to worry about internal conflict. Now remember, they will have conflicts here with the Native Americans that were all around here for many years to come as they moved westward. But I'm trying to tell you what the paper says. And then vessels arriving directly from foreign countries laden with valuable cargoes. Vessels, he's talking about ships that are coming from other countries, laden with valuable cargoes that are carrying valuable cargoes, valuable commodities, products, would rarely choose to hazard themselves to the complicated and critical perils which would attend attempts to unlade prior to their coming into port. They would have to dread both the dangers of the coast and of detection, as well after as before their arrivals at the places of their final destination. So if you're united, you'll have a federal navy, you'll have a coast guard, and they will guard the coasts. Any ship that wants to approach and is thinking about bringing stuff and emptying them somewhere without having to pay duties, taxes, they will be detected. But if we are not united, they can easily find an area that somebody will allow them to smuggle stuff into the country. So that's what he's talking about. And when he says they would dread both dangers of the coast and of detection, they will be afraid that they will be detected, they will be found out, they will be known about, and at the same time, if they're not familiar with the coast, they might ruin their ships, damage their ships, run the ship to the ground. So it says both of them would worry anybody who wants to do anything illegally. An ordinary degree of vigilance would be competent to the prevention of any material infractions upon the rights of the revenue. In other words, just with a little bit of being watchful, an ordinary degree of vigilance. If we are vigilant, we're careful, we're watchful, just with a little bit of effort, with a little bit of guard, we can make sure that nothing comes in the country without having to pay the duties, the tariffs that would be due. So government won't be cheated out of money that's supposed to go to its treasury. A few armed vessels judiciously stationed at the entrances of our ports might at small expense be made useful sentinels of the laws. So you put a few ships out there, not too many, that are trained, that are watchful, then they can guard the whole coast. With very little expense, you can save a lot of money that way. They will be great guards against smugglers. And the government, having the same interests to provide against violations everywhere, the cooperation of its measures in each state would have a powerful tendency to render them effectual. And since the government is going to get the same amount of tariff whichever state it goes to, it's going to be applying the law, being watchful all over the coast. It won't give advantage to one side of the country over another side, because it knows wherever that cargo lands, it's going to get a tariff, and that's going to go to the national treasury. That will keep the government running, and that will be able to secure people's life and also help preserve their liberty, help people defend their liberty if the time comes. States lie at a great distance from Europe and at a considerable distance from all other places with which they would have extensive connections of foreign trade. The passage from them to us in a few hours or in a single night, as between the coasts of France and Britain and of other neighboring countries, would be impracticable. One advantage, he says, that we have compared to countries of Europe, like let's say coasts of France. Country is not that big, so it's real easy to overnight to smuggle something from the country next door into, let's say, France or whatever. But we are at such a distance. Remember that back then it would take 45 days for a ship to cross the Atlantic. It says anybody that approaches our coasts, we're going to know about it. They can't do it overnight. And it continues, like we were saying, as between the coasts of France and Britain and of other neighboring nations would be impracticable. This is a prodigious security against the direct contraband with foreign countries. So this gives us a natural, a sweet defense against things getting smuggled into the country. Now you will hear the word contraband stuff when you study the history of the Civil War of the United States. But he's just talking about it'll be hard for people to bring things illegally through our coasts because there's such a long distance between our coasts and other countries, is that they have to be in the sea for a long time, and we will see them as they approach. And he says, but a circuitous contraband to one state through the medium of another would be both easy and safe. So if we unite, stuff coming into the country from the ports would be difficult. But if we don't unite, a circuitous contraband, in other words, between the states, things can be easily smuggled. And then we won't get any taxes on them. Governments will be, treasury would be empty. So he goes over and over to remind the advantages of union, the advantages of not having to put guards on the borders of the states to collect taxes, how unfair that would be, how irregular that would be, because different states will collect different rates, and it would make it easier for smugglers to be able to find ways to smuggle things inside. The difference between a direct importation from abroad and an indirect importation through the channel of a neighboring state in small parcels according to time and opportunity, with the additional facilities of inland communication, must be palpable to every man of discernment. Anybody who opens their eyes, is discerning, discernment, can figure out that it is really hard to smuggle stuff inside the country from the coast than inside the country between the states. Because remember, it opened with the fact that our conditions are the same, we speak the same languages, people maybe between the states, maybe somebody from Georgia won't know much about Virginia, but they'll know how to get stuff across to South Carolina. And people in South Carolina will know how to do the same to North Carolina. So stuff will be smuggled up and down, and only the lawbreakers, smugglers will benefit. The country, federal union, and then as a result, majority of American people will be hurt. So unite, he says, and have that steady source of income from tariffs, and it won't hurt people as much, and it'll be uniform, so people won't think they're being treated unfairly, and all of us will benefit from it.